Okay, so now we're going to look at what might be a D-level response. Notice right away how the length of the super F response, right, which is right here, compares to the length of the response that would get at least a D. It's about what? At least 2 to 3, it's about two, I would say it's 50 to 60, 70% longer than the super F. And of course, you can see that it's almost about 30, maybe 30 or 40% longer than the F response. Remember that this is the D level response, meaning it's worth between 60 and 69 points. So let's take a closer look at that one. Right away, let's leave it up here because you can always make the screen bigger to see this. Right away we see that this response is longer than this one, and this one has all of that response, like I said earlier. So notice here, one thing we have in common with respect to COVID-19. That's a nice introduction. One thing we have in common, nice introductory phrase. You know how I am with coherence, introductory phrases, transitional clauses, and things of that nature. That's what builds, in part, coherence. COVID-19 induced sacrifice has to do with our social lives. Notice how much more exact and precise and on point the introduction to this version of the paragraph is compared to this one. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with this, but this just shows off a little bit more sophistication. It's more exact. It brings in a little bit more context without focusing just on the context. Then again, you have these thoughts that we've seen in other submissions. You focus on how you felt compelled to cancel a specific event, while I make more general claims about my daily life and set of social activities. So this is similar to what they've said before, but now they're getting more exact, adding new information, showing off the level of analysis, how intellectually attentive they're being to the original responses, how intellectually attentive and careful they are being in comparing and contrasting their responses. What's really cool here is that this person says, my interpretation is that you felt compelled. That's a new idea that's expressed in the commentary. And they say you focused on a specific event. The speaker says they focused on things generally. So that provides some new insight. So they're saying we have some stuff in common, but in expressing that commonality, they're also noticing a difference. And that's something you can do with any set of quotes or that is possible to do with sets of quotes, is you can talk about something how the quote shows something you have in common, expand on that a little bit, but you can also show how there is something that is different. And so keep that in mind. There's always something you can point out with the commonality. You can still point out something different. So they say you make the exact nature of your particular sacrifice known at the very start when you say. Now this could be, if you're not good at constructing really good long introductory clauses into quotes, don't make one that's this long. If you have issues with syntax and losing track of your sentence, it would be better for you to have broken this up into two. So this person could have said, you make the exact nature of your particular sacrifice known at the very start, period. Then they could have said, we see this when you say in your second sentence. Okay, so they could have broken this down into a statement and then use the cohesive tie. We see this when you say as an introduction to the quote. That would make it a shorter introduction, and that might be the way that most of you need to go if you still want to add in this level of detail. Notice how he also points out that his peer is getting into the exact nature of what? A specific event. So this little attention to detail in writing shows me the attention to detail going on in the student's critical thinking, that is in terms of the analysis they're doing of their peer's response. Okay, I might get cut off here, but we'll keep going and pick up where we left off. So then he says, I don't get as detailed about my social sacrifice. So that's the same. Furthermore, I don't refer to any particular kinds of activities that have been limited by my social distancing. So now we are seeing the word social distancing for the first time, which is pretty cool. And he's a little bit more sophisticated in giving this bit of information compared to here. Here they say, I don't get as detailed about my sacrifice. Look how that compares to here. I don't refer to any particular kinds of activities that have been limited by my social, so that's details. I don't refer to any specifics till the end of my reasoning. So then here they say, I don't refer to any particular kinds of activities, right? So again, he's making that contrast within the similarity. Yes, we both talked about social activities, but there's still a difference within that. And he brings in, this notion that he's been social distancing himself and that this has been a limit on him. This has placed limits on him. And he says, this comes at the end of my reasoning. So he's also pointing out that she starts off at the beginning, getting into her sacrifice, where he kind of gets more into it towards the end. And then he does a really good transition. Notice that this is part of a longer sentence, the quote is, and he does a really good job setting up and working fluidly from what's in his own words in black to the quote that's in purple. What I've noticed for some students is that they're really challenged when they want to take just part of a sentence and part of a statement and quote it in the context of an introduction. A lot of people lose me right here because of a missing verb, a missing subject that occurs as they're trying to introduce the quote. So you still have to have really good syntax from the introduction, right? So this is the introduction into the quote. So you have to know where to start the partially quoted words, and you have to know how to set that up in terms of your introductory clause and the syntax that you create for that. Now let's look at this question. Why do you feel canceling the party was the right thing to do? This does have a moral component, but there is still a problem with the question. The problem with the question is it ignores the context of the student's response. So in their response, they're giving reasons as to why they decided they had to cancel the party. Now, the student might not come out and say it was the morally correct thing to do, but the fact that they said they think they deserve moral praise for it suggests that they do. So he's kind of ignoring the fact that she's already touched on it. So that's not really the best question to ask her. It's not quite compelling given the context of what she says. And I bring this up because what a lot of students will do when it comes to generating questions is they'll ask a question, but the student has already answered it in the response. Now, if you think the student hasn't done enough to help you understand where they're coming from, then you can ask a question to have them elaborate on something, but it really needs to be something that they can elaborate in a way that shows sensitivity to helping them understand their epistemology better, the issues that we've been exploring during Unit 4 and whatnot. Okay, that's all for this example.